So we're actually going to repeat this session because last time we did the session, we ended up having people who were not understanding what I was really talking about. So it's good for us to repeat the session so that we don't skip the necessary points as we go, right? Now, we have what we call a break or structure in the change of character. And I'd want us to look at them at a point whereby we are reversing a trend. We both know that a trade gives us highs and lows when it's going up. And then there's also a point whereby we have a break of a previous high, and going up, breaking previous highs, making new highs. What some other books, sources, or mentors might say is this is a break-off structure, right? But as a beginner, when we're learning about break-off structure, we don't really want to work at a point whereby we start terming this a break-off structure. Let's just call this a break for now. And our break-off structure, as of now, let's take it as a move that's going to reverse our trend. Meaning that, let's say we are buying, right? We are in a buy market. For now, let's term our break-off structure is the move that's going to reverse the trend and go down. Just as much as we can flip this to say, we were in a sell market and we are now changing to a buy market, giving a break of structure and then a shift in structure. Now, there is different ways that these trend reversals happen. And I want to start by two models at first, and then I'll go on to the other one. Now, according to different sources, especially when we are using BTMM or beat the market maker method, remember what we are teaching you here is price action and SMC, not BTMM. But BTMM generally says when you are reversing a trend, what you want to see is an M or a W, right? And how relevant is this? It's relevant in the terms that, let's say we were in a downtrend and we now want to reverse a trend. What you expect to see is a W, a breakout structure, and then a reversal. Just as much as when we are in a buy market, what you want to see is an M, breakout structure, a reversal, right, or a change of character. Now, there is what we call break of market structure. Break of market structure, and then there's what we call a change of character, right? What is a break of structure? A break of structure, let's start here, right? A break of structure, what we generally term it is, it's a move, right, that breaks a trend. Let's say we are in an uptrend. We want to see a low being broken. And what I told you before is we call this a high, right? And we call this a low, right? We call this a low, meaning that we expect to see more highs that are above previous highs when we're in an uptrend, right? And we expect to see more lows that are above previous low when we are still in that uptrend. The moment we break a low or we go past a low, we now term that move a break of structure. Like in this scenario, our break of structure, if we mark it, it should be here, right? This will be a point where our break of market structure is. So at this low is also where at that low is also where our breakout structure happened here just by this line. Now, we can see that as well when we're in a sell side direction, meaning that we can be having a downtrend, giving us lows, highs, lows, highs, lows, highs, lows, and then the moment we break a previous high, right, like in this scenario, we've broken a high. Let's say if we mark it again, we have a low here, and then we have a high here, right? I understand that if I start saying lower lows and lower highs, some people, they'll be a bit confused. But for now, let's just say this is a low and that's a high, as you can see. Now, what we expect to see is we expect to see lows when we're in a downward trend. We expect to see lows that are downward, that are in a downward manner, and then highs that are below previous highs as well. So the moment we break a previous high, like in this case, if we are now switching to an uptrend, we have to break a high, not a low, right? Remember that. What we now term this again is our break of market structure point, or our BOS. This is where it's going to be. Right. After a break of structure, what we expect to see is we want to see a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, going in the opposite direction up until a point whereby we violate a previous low again, right? And then if we're in a sell side direction, we expect to see a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, up until we violate a previous high again, to say that we are now in a buying market, right? So let me remove all this. So what you might see is, let's say you are reading this structure from an H4 perspective. What you see is your H4, it will give you what we call your external structure and your major structure at the same time. Meaning, in H4, you can see a high and a low, a high and a low, a high. But if you now zoom in a smaller time frame, that is not H4. Remember the first lesson, I don't know if it was the first or second lesson that I taught you. I said, if you zoom in a larger time frame, what you see is, let's change color on this one, all right? What you see is inside of it, there is also going to be another structure that you're going to see, right? Meaning, let's say this is our H4, and we move on to, let's say, M5. What you see is, you see that M5 giving you a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, and the breakout structure, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high. This is what you are going to see in your internal structure, right? If you zoom in on smaller time frame, right? Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because there's a point in time that, before I say what I want to say, we can only say a law is valid. You see this law, we can only say it's valid when it breaks a high, meaning that the next law that is going to come, if price comes to this point, we cannot say this is a low. We can just anticipate that it's a low, but we cannot 100% say this is a low. Why? Because it hasn't broken this high. And from what we are seeing price doing, we are expecting price to buy and go up, right? So As we are expecting price to buy and to go up, what we have to know at the same time is there's possibilities that price might reject to break this high and then actually fall. You understand? This is why we say it's not a valid low yet. So the only valid high and low at this point are this high is valid and this low is valid. This low is valid because it broke a high. So it leaves us with what we call a trading range, right? And that trading range, the way that we treat it is we can put a box. Every time you see that a low is broken a high and it has given you a new high, you can put a box, right? What does it mean? It means that anything that we are going to see here, it's just going to be just a temporary pullback, right? And if you see a high inside and a low inside of this major high and low, you cannot say these are valid, right? This can be valid in maybe in the smaller time frames that you're using, but for the larger time frame that you have marked your low and your high at, this won't be valid. And you cannot rule out that you are now in a downtrend based from internal structure, right? Why? Because externally or on your major structure here, price doesn't have to break this low, right? It has to come and break this high going up. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So why am I teaching you this? I'm teaching you this to know that there's now a point when we are now here, we now know that, okay, the new low is here and most probably our valid high is going to be here, right? And we know that if we violate this law here, we have broken structure. And that point of breakout structure is at this area that I'm marking here, right? So let me remove this box so that it doesn't confuse you. So when we now break that low, this is where our breakout structure is going to be. But again, there's a point in time when we can have a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, and a low, a high, and a low. And then what you see is, since we now know that this low is supposed to come and break this high, I'll come and mark it like this. We now know that this is the valid low and this is the valid high. And that valid high is the one that is to get broken, right? And since we now know that, we have to break it. There's a time when price doesn't come and break that high. And the reason being, this low won't give us, this low here that I'm marking, this low won't give us enough momentum to come and break this high. So it's now a weak low. This low over here, we call it a protected low. The moment it comes and it breaks a high, we start calling it a protected low and a valid low at the same time. Why? Because it has given us enough momentum to come and break a high, right? So since this low now here fails to come and break this high, this low becomes weak. And what we do is we hunt it, right? Meaning that we have to come and break it since it didn't give us enough force to come and break the high. And what that generally means in the Forex market is we had strong buys in the market, but those buyers are now getting exhausted. Why? Because they failed to break that high, meaning that they are now overpowered by sellers. So it means that price is to come and sell off. But now remember, this is a low that failed to break a high, meaning that when price now comes and breaks that low, it's not a break of structure. When price comes and breaks this low, it's not a break of structure. Rather, it's a change of character. And what this change of character tells us is, all right, we might just go down. But remember, we already have a protected low and a high, which price have to break either way, right? So from this protected low, we know that price is not supposed to come and break this low because it's protected while it broke a high. This low is to get broken at some point because it failed to break a high. But remember, we still have a valid high and a valid low here, right? Meaning that price can choose to come and then move up. This is why when we see a change of character in the market, we don't completely rule out that we have stopped buying and we are now overly selling, because we consider our holding low and our holding high. But if we now happen to say we've come and we've broken that low, this is now what we call a break of structure, meaning that we now have two things. We now have two things. We've first started by getting a change of character and we got a break of structure. This is now different from what I showed you first below here. Why? Because what you see is this high that was valid, right? This high that was valid here. At first, from this low that was valid, at first it was broken, right? And after we broke it, we now have a new low here, right? And as we now have a new low, let me mark it, as we now have a new low here and a new high that broke that high, straight away from that high, what you can see is we came and broke the previous low. There is no change of character here, rather there is a break of structure. A change of character would have existed if we had said, all right, we have a high and we have a low that failed to break that high, and then now we are falling. This would have been our change of character. I hope you now understand this. Before I proceed, do you have anyone with a question? Before I proceed and move on, do you have anyone with a question? Feel free to raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, I'm gonna all right. Tangirai, can you ask?
Good evening, sir.
Evening, how are you?
I'm not great. So, which means if we have a change of character only without having a breakout structure, we don't do anything.
Right. This is the basic concept, right? So let me answer that in the next thing that I wanted to say.
All right, okay.
All right. Besides that question, do we have another question? Or you want me to ask you guys? I can ask you. Femi, I can ask you. Or Dr. Abiola, I can ask you as well. All right.
I have a question.
Yes. Yes, I'm
Hello.
listening. Yes, yes, we're listening.
Okay. My question is concerning the change of character and breaking of law. How do we exactly know when it's change of character instead of breaking of law? Because from your explanation, both of them are confusing me, the change of character and the breaking of law. Like this last illustration you gave, it moves from the high straight down and it's breaking of low. Then
Yes.
when is it change of character instead of breaking of low? That is what I want to get
All right.
clear at.
Okay. It's a change of character when it fails to break a previous high. So let's say, like you see here, our valid high is this high, and our valid low is this low. This low is valid because it broke a high here, right? So let's say we get in a situation whereby now, let me remove this. Let's say we get in a situation whereby now we fail, we come, we give a low, and we fail to break that high. From what we see here, based from this market structure, what we know is we are supposed to come and give a low and then continue, right? So that we flow with the market structure that's happening. But if we now fail, if we now come and give a low and fail to break that high, but then come and break that low, this is a change of character. Why? Because we have a valid low down here and a valid high down here, up there. And this low was supposed to be the only valid low that was going to come next. Or simply let me do it in this way so that maybe you can understand. So let me do this. When we are having market structure, right, we want to have a high and a low, a high and a low. These lows should not come and break the previous lows like this, but they should trend above the previous lows and then go up, right? But then what you see here is we have a low that broke a high right here. And at some points, price can just come and break the previous low. This is now what we call a breakout structure. Why? Because we are breaking a low that had broken a high. But then a change of character now works in this way. Let's say, okay, a change of character now works in this way. What you can see is we can have a low, a high, a low, and then we can have a low that comes, right, and fails to break a high. If that low fails to break a high, it means this is the valid low. This low can only become valid if it breaks a high. But in this case, it will fail to break a high, and then we'll come and break it. Now we know that this is a change of character. Again, why are we saying this? I'll try to explain with many points as possible. When we have a low and a high, when we have a high and a low, and then a low and a high, we mark that area, right? Why? Because we're expecting price to give us a low in that area. That comes and breaks a high in that area, meaning that this is the new low again, and then this is the new high again, right? But what you see at some point is price will just come and break the previous low. This is a breakout structure because we're breaking a low that had broken a high, right? And we are breaking out of this whole range, right? But at some point, what you would see again is, let's say if we mark it like this, we have a low that fails to break a high, but we'll come and break it. Since we know that our trading range is this area and this low, right? We now call this a change of character because this low didn't break anything. So it's not a true low. And then when now price comes and breaks this low that had broken this high, we now call it a break of structure, meaning that we are going to have a break of structure here and a change of character here. I don't know if you got me there. I don't know if I explained in a way that you can understand. Did I answer you right? Let me unmute you. Did I answer you right? I've unmuted you. Okay, I'm not getting any response. It's fine. Now, I have a question from Mafi. Mafi, you can ask.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Evening, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. My question goes like this. When you have a break of low or break of high, what is the implication on the state of the market, whether buying or is selling, when we have a break of low or a break of high? Does it have any implication on the state of the market, whether it's selling or buying?
Yes, it has an implication. All right, I'll repeat this again. If we are buying, we are expecting to have highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. So okay, let me mark them. So if we're having these highs and lows, the new highs should be above the previous highs. The new lows should be above the previous lows. Like I said before, so let's say this is a low, this is a low, this is a low, this is a low, right? This means when we get a low, we are supposed to have a new high that is above the previous high. And we are supposed to have a new low that is above the previous low, like this. This is how the market moves, right? And if we see this again, we are supposed to have a new high that is above the previous high, right? So if now we break a low, this now means we have changed direction from the buy. We are now switching to a sell, meaning that from now onwards, what we are expecting to see is a low and then a high, a low and then, and then a high, a low and then a high, a low and then a high. So we are looking for that first break of a low. And as we can see, it's here. When we were going up, we were not breaking any lows, right? We were not breaking any lows, as you can see. But when we got to this point, we broke a low, meaning that if we were in an upward market or if we were in a buy market, we are now switching to a sell market. And we now have to see new highs and new lows, new highs and new lows, new highs and new lows. As you can see, now we want another new low and another new high. But since we are now selling, we are saying if we come and we break a high, since we are not breaking any highs as we are in the downtrend, we are now switching from that downtrend and we are now going to an uptrend, meaning that we are now having lows and highs, lows and highs, lows and highs, lows and highs, until we break another low and we now have highs and lows, highs and lows. I hope I answered you in a way that you understand. Did I answer you correctly there? Did I answer you in a way that you understand? Or you understood?
I have a confusion here. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, from the understanding I have, that when the highs is always above the previous high, it signs to the rule that we are buying.
Exactly.
I don't know whether you're understanding me. So my
Yes.
question now is, the time it changes that we are now having a lower high, is it now selling? What
Yes.
shows that it has not, the trend has not changed to a lower high, a continuous lower high?
Is this break of structure
How do
over
we
here?
determine that it has changed?
By breaking structure, like here,
Hello?
as you can, by this break of a low over here, like here, you see, the moment we broke a low, this now tells us that we are now selling.
We are now selling.
Yes, exactly.
So, but what I'm asking is this: the sign to show that the trend has changed to selling, does it imply that the highs will continue, the current high will continue being lower than the previous high?
Okay, let me show you on the actual chart. Let me show you on the actual chart. Let's start by
Okay.
reading this structure over here. I don't want to put you on a larger time frame, but anyways, we can do that. Okay, let me put you in this time frame here. What you generally see is we were in a downtrend, right? We were having a low, a high, a low, a high, and then a low. But the moment we came and we broke a high here, we are now having a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low. I don't know if you're getting me. So the only sign that we can have is through the break of a previous high, which is now what we call break of structure. Now, is it what you are asking?
At this very point now, at this very point, from this chart or this graph, is showing more of selling than buying.
All right. I want you to see something. If we now move to the right side, what you can see now is price is buying more than selling. All right, let's repeat this again together. We have a low that we have here and a high, right? And then we have a low here and a high, a low,
And
a
the
high,
high,
a low,
a
a
low,
high, right? And a high and
a
then a
low,
low. The moment we
a high.
broke this high, what you see is we now have a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low, a high, a low.